I am calling to order the special call city commission meeting for December 1st at 4:30. Opening prayer by Dr. John Haley, senior pastor of New Covenant Church of God in Christ, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Granger. Please rise.
Let us pray. Lord, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for us individually. Thank you for what you've done for us collectively. God, we recognize your awesome power and your goodness that you have extended to each one of us. You filled our days with gladness of heart. You've made us jubilant and joyful in spirit. Thank you for doing so by way of the Spirit of your precious Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, God, we will be remiss were we not to ask you for your wisdom, ask you for your grace and your guidance in times like these. Nehemiah in chapter 1 asked for your favor and your blessings to ultimately rebuild 2.5 miles of walls and gates that were destroyed in Jerusalem. God, not only did you grant him his desire, but you gave him the wisdom to do in 52 days what others were unable to do in 74 years. You blessed him to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Your word tells us to acknowledge you in all our ways, and you will direct our paths. Nehemiah did that, and God, you responded mightily to his requests. So, here we are, knowing that you know respecter of persons, asking that you grant these commissioners and our mayor, who are your servants, grant them the wisdom they need to facilitate the rebuilding of what is necessary to effectuate growth in this community now and in the days to come. Help them to come to a concrete resolve of what is in the best interests of the community and the constituents they serve. Bless them to be united and wholeheartedly committed to this work. Bless them to stand on the shoulders of righteousness and be recognized for their goodness and their propensity to rule with wisdom, transparency, and sincerity all the days of their lives. It is in the precious and immaculate name of Jesus Christ we ask and pray these things. Amen.
Amen. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Branch.
Present.
Commissioner Street.
Here.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Lucas.
Present.
Commissioner Granger.
Present.
Mayor, you have quorum.
Thank you. You've received the meeting minutes from November 10th. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, Jonathan and I actually this afternoon were talking about how to make this meeting flow the best, keeping us moving forward, giving the public as much opportunity to speak with information in front of them. And one of the ideas was to move audience participation to after discussion of the term sheet, or have multiple segments of audience participation. Do we have any strong feelings either way of how to create more dialogue? I know one of the comments were to even have a roaming mic during public comment so people feel the most comfortable. That was another bit of feedback I heard as well.
One of the things that I heard was from being nervous,
Yeah.
if
they can stand up and talk. So maybe we can go back there, or the idea of maybe moving that back to the middle so they're not right up here. Just want to be able to give them the most opportunity to talk. But yes, sir, I like the idea of them listening and then having comments afterwards, or both, because they did have the opportunity to look at it online and read the agenda.
I'm fine with both.
I would suggest we do both. What I mean by that is keep the podium, allow audience participation right now for those who need to make comments and maybe they have to be somewhere else.
Sure.
That's what's on the agenda. But then also allow for other times, so we have different, kind of like we did the last time where we had 5A, talk about it, comments, 5B, comments, just open it up for comments each time.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
How do we feel about taking that to them, or?
I mean, I'm not really against it. I could just see how it could kind of fall apart pretty quick.
Yeah. Or they're
Would
yelling.
it help y'all speak if
I'm
we
not a
came
big
to you instead of intimidating being
It
up
kind of
here?
goes down to, I'm not a big fan of trying out something new, especially when we have a topic that is,
I get it.
Sure.
as hot as it is, right? So,
Or let's just, then we can keep the podium and just let's open it up a couple times in section 5, so people have opportunity to speak multiple times, especially as more information's coming out. We want to keep things, factual and truthful and straightforward and keep things moving. So let's just go ahead and open up audience participation. Please come forward, your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to talk. Don't be nervous, we're all just people. So please come forward. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting me speak. Frank DiPinto, 801 West 13th Street, Panama City. And I have 3 questions. When will the Marina Charrette workshops be held for the uplands? I don't think that is really important for the slips, wet slips. When? How many workshops will there be? And then from that, the time frame for uplands funding and construction. It seems like we have 2 separate, the slips and the uplands. And my big concern is the uplands, Grassy Parkway, as I have spoken to. So if you can address those 3 questions, I'd appreciate it.
Is that
Jonathan, were you able to reach out?
is that all the
to
comments you
them?
have?
Yeah.
Okay. Jonathan, do you want to answer those questions?
Yeah, sure. I do know we did have a conversation today with Dover Coal after basically the holiday week last week. But one of the things, we got kind of 2 options. Option 1 would be workshop in 2 parts, basically December 17th, which is a Wednesday, 4 to 7 p.m.
I'm sorry, 4?
I'm sorry, what's
What
that?
were the times? On the
Just
17th?
4 to 7 p.m.
Okay, 4 to
Yeah, not 2
7.
And
different
these are
times, sorry.
non-adopted. We haven't
Yeah,
adopted these. And we
this
haven't-
would kind of be like a kind of a listening session specifically about the Marina Uplands kickoff. And then they would return January 21st to the 22nd. It would be an open house, stakeholder meetings. That would be a 2-day period, again, January 21st, 22nd. And then, kind of from January 23rd through February 28th, they would work on detailed plans and recommendations. And then sometime in early March, have community workshop number 2. The second workshop could occur later if the additional financial analysis was needed by PFM, because they need to be done before they can move forward. Option 2 would be to basically do it all over a 3-day period. That would be January 21st through the 23rd. Same kind of thing, but you'd have a kickoff for the uplands, kind of a listening session, and then followed by the 2 days of the community workshop. And then again, over the same time, January 23rd through kind of the end of February, detailed plans and recommendations put down, and then have community workshop number 2, kind of that first half of March, following the financial analysis that would be needed by PFM in order for Dover Coal to really make the recommendations to this board. So we've got 2 options.
Yep. And then the other question was funding and timeline of the wet slips. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. I don't know,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay, so you let us know during December, I guess, when those are going to be happening?
I'll send you an email personally.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? don't have to be shy. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, or almost evening.
My name is Norvin Thibodeau, 206 North MacArthur Avenue, Panama City, Florida. Is there money to build the 50 wet slips available through grants or whatever they may be? Can I ask you, Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to have more questions, or was that the only question?
I'm sorry.
Was that the only question, or was
No, I want to know if.
Yeah, give them all to us at one time if you don't mind.
Well, if there was money available, why doesn't the city go ahead and build the 50 wet slips? Let's see what's going to happen with the 50 wet slips. Leave the wetlands alone or the uplands alone for right now, because we don't need no hotel or motel on uplands like being proposed. 250 units going to take up the whole entire marina right there. We need to save the marina for the kids, for the people of this city to use. Down that center strip between the two basins, yeah, maybe a couple stores right through there. Single-story buildings would be fine. But you could also get the people who are running the St. Andrews Marina, also check out the city marina as the slips are being built, and it could be paid, they could pay their money for the rent fees to those people. They could come down and take care of it that way, instead of having a big financial burden on the taxpayers. So, how about it, Mayor?
Yes, sir. Is that it?
Yeah, I was just,
Yeah,
there's
and I
more
should-
I'd like to say, but I'm going to keep it. I
Yeah.
look like I'm outgunned.
Sure, no worries. I should have made this announcement. At the very front of the door, there's a couple different printouts that I suggest everyone grabbing. It'll make a lot of clarity. One is a memo from Jan Smith, our city clerk, about different possibilities of ways we can borrow money and different avenues of borrowing money. It looks like this. Make sure you grab this handout at the front door. And then the other printout is the term sheet 6 from CMP, which is the current path that they propose as well. So these are the possibilities of us using money. And I don't want to read this. This will be like 4 minutes of me reading. So make sure you grab this sheet. We're going to be going
Yeah,
through
I've
this
got one
today.
of those.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's kind of confusing to me, the way things have been going on around here, I'm just kind of, like I say, just at all about, what to believe and what not to believe. I hear all kind of rumors through the grapevine and all. I heard we have the money to build the 50 slips if we wanted to. And that if we give it to the CMP, that they want a stipulation that they get the uplands. And like I say, I don't think we should group the two of them together. I think it ought to be two separate things. The 50 slips first, let's build it, see what we got. If it works out, then let's go ahead with the other 250. And let the city make the money and keep the uplands for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Forgot the time.
I used to doing this job. I know, I was like, what's up?
And if you have questions, just ask all the questions at once, and we'll answer them all at one time, too. Yes, sir.
Derek Thomas, 1100 West 10th Street. Noticed that the area right there around Indigo Hotel is being torn up for plumbing, sewage lines being put in, and water mains. And if you were going to do a development of the upland, would you be doing that now? Or how much more is that going to cost to put in all the plumbing for all of that stuff? And just to remind you guys, that's filled dirt, sand sucked up along Beach Drive that was dumped on top of the frame for the upland area. And so that's just sand piled on top of mud. So any kind of building that's more than one story is going to have a lot of problems there. And so it would put in the plumbing, would create a lot of problems. Did you find out, I brought this up a couple times, about the slips, getting permits for them? At the original meeting, St. Joe had offered to do the north side or the west side for 450, and the city offered 600 to do the whole thing, and St. Joe said, no, we're just going to do the west side. So who's paying for the permits on the east side? So if you got the stuff for the west side now and getting the 50 slips, I'd like to see that. Also, have you considered how much more it's going to cost to take those two C breaks and turn it into one solid C wall? I think that's going to be a very expensive proposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, do you want to answer the question of when did the construction project around Destination Panama City start?
That's Area 011. That's a state, that's a CDBG grant that we have for that. And I mean, it does involve, upgrade of water lines. And so, whatever type of development we need to do out on the T-Dock, we'll add additional water. There's actually already water line out to the base of the T-Dock. You've got that old riser pipe right there. You've got plenty of water already out on the marina for both, Hotel Indigo and Harrison's. It's just a matter of what we'd want to run out there, but, probably would involve running an 8-inch water line out to the T-Dock, and that would supply water for a number of developments or whatever we might have out there, and that's our city standard now.
Yep.
So, yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments, don't be shy. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Bernie Thompson.
Do you have an
I would like to
Can I get
know-
an address, please?
Yeah, I live in Panama City Beach. So I was thinking about repurposing money, specifically about $6 million. And the money I'm talking about is the grant that was initially like $8 million for Beach Drive. And we know now that the city is not going to be getting Beach Drive. DOT is not transferring it. I mean, the whole multi-use path idea has fallen apart. Everybody knows that. But you've already burnt through maybe $2 million. But you've got at least $6 million of sidewalk grant money, if it's still good, because I think it expired. But you've still got $6 million that could be repurposed. We know it can be repurposed. And when I leave here, I hope that you'll acknowledge, yes, it can be repurposed, or no, we're still saying it can't be repurposed. But if you were to take that $6 million, imagine what you could do. I mean, we could have sidewalks, things related to sidewalks that the grant allows you to do, benches, restrooms, all kinds of cool stuff. Rather than sticking with, we're going to take the $6 million and now it's only a 4-foot sidewalk, or why don't we just repurpose that to what the people want? I think that, and that's all I have. I just would really love to know what you think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any previous communications related to grant allocations been sent out before my time?
Yeah, I mean, we have a letter from the former District 3 DOT secretary that says it can't be repurposed. And the appropriation specifically says sidewalk in between Frankfurt Avenue and 6th Street.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on down. Good afternoon.
I'm Corey Ash, a property owner at 544 East 6th Street. And I just wondered from reading the notes, how much you guys have reached out for like public-private partnerships outside of just St. Joe Company. I think they're great, but they did have a point on collateralization, and I think that, there's probably a way that the city could outsource this whole problem to a private industry, if that's what you guys choose to do. I just didn't know if you've already tried that, or there's been some other solutions considered.
Yes, sir.
That's my only question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. This is, the whole conversation today is a P3. CMP, City Marina Partners, is a private organization. We're talking about doing a P3 with them.
Okay.
Yeah, the term sheet 6 is the presented P3 option.
So they're the financing mechanism, or?
There's a bunch of them. I definitely suggest grabbing this term sheet for more information. So this is the one that outlines all the funding mechanisms we have in-house, and this is alternatives with a private-public partnership.
Oh, I see. Okay, so when I was thinking public-private partnership, I meant thinking like, I'm not saying I would do it, but let's just say if you were redeveloping a Brownsville area, maybe a casino would want to purchase that. Maybe they would then obviously pay and the amenities would come. I'm not saying a casino would, but I'm just simply saying for like what I meant by public-private partnership. So if there's an open, if your objectives are kind of known to other partners outside of St. Joe Company, I think that there would be probably a way to finance the 50 slips and include maybe some other stuff, as long as it, agrees with the city's objectives.
Yes, sir, thank you.
So that's kind of what is that in here? Is
Yes,
that
so
the
we put an
CMP?
RFP out a year and a half, 2 years ago?
It's been pretty close to 2 years, if not, and it actually followed what we did at this, this all started in St. Andrews with the St. Andrews Marina. The prior commission, might have even been 2 commissions ago, voted to go out for a request for proposal from a P3, a public-private partnership, to build out and operate the St. Andrews Marina. After we got that one locked in, we then did the same thing with the downtown marina. We went out for RFP, and that's our relationship and ongoing negotiations with City Marina Partners.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so that's already then kind of locked in. All right, great. So the options that we're looking at to finance it is what they've presented then, so we're kind of far in the process already.
Well, just to be clear, St. Andrews is locked in. Downtown is not. We're in negotiations with CMP.
Would you have to go through with whatever with CMP, or is there another?
That's just a question for the
Yeah,
commission.
that's what we're gonna find out tonight.
All right, all right. So I guess that's my question then. Do you have to go with them, and would you consider maybe recompeting the opportunity for other developers?
That's what we're gonna find out tonight, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else? Open public comments, anything related to the marinas? Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bob Zales II, 1906 Tyndall Drive. Looking through this paperwork, I see a lot of sources of funding from Florida. I may have missed it, but I don't see any kind of information in here about possible federal funding sources here. I'm sure y'all are aware, in April, the president issued Executive Order 14276 to restore American seafood competitiveness in this country. That gave direction to every agency in the federal government to do what they can do to restore the commercial seafood industry in this country. This marina is a classic example of funding that could be possible for that. So I would suggest that you have your staff research this, because I suspect there's plenty of money out there, not just for fishing, working waterfronts, infrastructure, everything that goes along with what this marina is. And you've heard me, I've sent y'all emails, communicated. You don't need to reinvent this wheel. All you need to do is restore the city marina to what it once was. Panama City has a strong heritage, a lot of history. Mayor, your family has been involved. Ms. Lucas was born into it. She's fully aware of everything that's here. We don't need housing. We don't need all this stuff there. Your Facebook post the other day, it's classic. You got people sitting on the ground looking at sunsets. How are you going to look at over a townhouse to see that? You don't need that. You need a marina. You need the infrastructure to go along and support the vessels that come in there, provide the opportunity for people to see what's going on. Where the Civic Center once was, put you an amphitheater there. The wharf in Orange Beach, Alabama, if none of you have seen it, is perfect. It's got an amphitheater there. They bring concerts in, name people. Look at Pier Park, what they do. Would you rather sit on the grass at Pier Park, surrounded by buildings, or would you rather sit at the marina, on the grass, on benches, looking at the bay, looking at the sunset, looking at everything that's there? That's what it's all about. That's what it's always been about. That's all you need to do. You don't need to work and provide a gift to investors to build infrastructure to profit from. Support the people who you're supposed to be loyal to, the citizens of this city. I'm one of them. That marina, part of it belongs to me. I pay taxes for it. Leave it, restore it, put it like it was. Don't worry about making it some grandiose atmosphere that's not necessary.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments are still open. Yes, ma'am. Come on down. Good evening.
Commission, Mayor. I'm Sandy Marlisa. I live in Lynn Haven. I've been reviewing the city's own public financial analysis for the current CMP deal. The PFM report dated June 6, 2025. This is the document the city relies on to determine the financial viability of the CMP deal. And for the public who doesn't know what a PFM is, the Public Financial Management is one of the largest municipal financial advisory firms in the United States, and they advise governments, counties, cities, and school districts nationwide, and are known for conservative data-driven analysis. And there is one sentence in this report that every citizen needs to hear very clearly. The upward financial potential for the downtown marina beyond the current projections in the pro forma may be limited if the downtown marina uplands are not further developed. The report continues, and again I quote, "It is expected that CMP will request that the city evaluate development proposals for landside development to create additional value for the downtown marina wet slip operations." And these two sentences establish something essential. This is not just a marina project for CMP. Its financial success depends on upland's commercial development. And we all know across Florida, when marinas require upland development to be financially viable, the pattern is the same. Higher rent pressure for business owners and regular people, curated tenants, parking restrictions, and reduced access for fishermen and residents. Local businesses pushed into a competitive ecosystem they never asked for. Business owners who rebuilt this town after Hurricane Michael. And you do not have to take my word for it. In Destin, 30A, Tampa, Fort Walton, West Palm, the cause and effect is consistent every time. And I am concerned, as a citizen of Bay County, that the PFM points to a future designed for hypothetical future residents, investors, and tourists. Hypothetical, while the people who actually live here now are treated as expendable. And before anyone argues that the PFM is simply a suggestion, we cannot claim this report is just a suggestion and also use it to justify a public-private partnership. The PFM report is the only financial justification on record for this particular partnership. And if we dismiss the parts we don't like, then the whole recommendation becomes unreliable. And if we are dismissing one part, then the entire financial justification must be re-examined. If this report is just a suggestion, it cannot be used to justify the CMP partnership. But if it is the basis for the partnership, then every single part of that PFM, including the uplands dependency, must be taken seriously. We cannot pick and choose what we like and don't like. I hope our public servants today will consider the implications this report asserts for the future of everyone in Bay County. Financial reports may deal in numbers and projections, but without the context of real living community, they are simply numbers on a page. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, closing public comments. Moving on to item 5. Where'd my agenda go? There it is. Mr. Harrison, would you come up and give us about 10 minutes? And then we're going to open up public comments again, more than likely.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
William Harrison, 101 Harrison Avenue. For context purposes, I guess first, let me say I'm glad that we have a lot of citizen involvement and people attending today. I hope there are a lot online as well. And we encourage constant and continual public involvement through this project. For context, there were 5 term sheets that we proposed to the commission last month that led to this meeting. The commission did not take any action on the 5 term sheets, which were kind of a summary of different options in looking at a variety of ways that the city could move forward on building the wet slips and funding the wet slips. The concerns, there were a number of concerns that you raised, but some of the greatest concerns had to do with funding the wet slips, the financial feasibility of the project as a whole, and then looking at the input from the public through public charrettes for what the uses would be for the uplands. The advertisement that the commission sent out, I guess, beginning of last year for this project included a look at the marina as a whole, and this followed the process that we went through on the St. Andrews Marina and looking at the wet slips and the uplands at the St. Andrews Marina. So the process follows the St. Andrews Marina. There's a lot of modeling, financial modeling and analysis done by our team and by the city's consultants and the city staff to make St. Andrews a financially feasible project. And for those in the audience who may not know, it is the same group at the St. Andrews Marina that's known as St. Andrews Marina Partners, as are here before you tonight with City Marina Partners. So for tonight's purposes, I guess there's a lot of consideration of what we term term sheet number 6 that we've put in front of you over the last week or so. We feel like this addresses the concerns that the commission raised and that the public raised at the last meeting. Some of that is the interest of some commissioners to have this project move forward. Concern of the commission as a whole that all public input be taken into consideration before anything, if anything, is to be put on the uplands. As we discussed at the last meeting, CMP proposed in our initial submittal to the city beginning of last year that charrettes be held immediately upon our submittal being provided to the city so that the public would have the opportunity to come in and say what, if anything, would be done on the uplands. The city at that time, for whatever reason, did not want to do that. And so now here we are with a kind of a time crunch, being 7 years past the hurricane and not having any operational slips. So we encourage and support charrettes as we proposed. Any and everything that can be done to bring the public in for the public's input for what, if any, uses to be put on the uplands, we think is vitally important to the future of this project. And so what we've proposed in term sheet 6 kind of marries together all of those different priorities of the commission as we have heard it. One is that we could go ahead and begin construction in this month, assuming that the commission approves a term sheet which is non-binding on either party. And what we would propose is that this would come back with a long-term agreement for the next commission meeting that I think is in mid-December. That long-term agreement is similar to many long-term agreement drafts that have been sent to the commission before we kind of shelved that and went to term sheets. And so we believe we can turn that around pretty quickly, working with your staff to incorporate any action that you may take tonight if you're interested in doing that. What term sheet 6 does is it puts pressure on the city and on CMP equally, I think, fairly in moving forward. One is that CMP will move forward with construction of the 50 slips. We were able to obtain the 50 slip exemption from permitting, which allows us to begin construction at any time following the issuance of a development order by the city planning department. The city would fund the construction of the wet slips And similar to what we're doing with the city at St. Andrews, the major items in construction would be procured by the city. The way that it is being handled at St. Andrews is that we're required to get multiple quotes. We bring those to the city. The city approves whoever it is that is, the best respondent to whatever the bid is, and then we proceed on. The advantages of doing it that way is the city procures the major items for construction. There are probably 4 or 5 different areas of major procurement. And as the city, as the procuring arm of the project, there's no sales tax on that, and we would proceed on with construction of the 50 slips. What would also occur as part of this process is that there's about $10 million worth of upland infrastructure that needs to be constructed that the city commission at the last meeting intimated that you wanted to use $5 million approximately in FEMA funds that could be used for construction cost of part of that $10 million. We at CMP would be responsible for the remaining $5 million. Those $10 million worth of investment in construction are non-revenue producing improvements out there. It would be to replace the pavement on the T-Dock, to put in utilities, stormwater if we're required to do that, railings, lighting, promenade, and I'm probably missing something, and the breakwater that is missing in the West Basin. And so with that, we would move forward in constructing those improvements. And as you reported at the last meeting, you have $150 million that was borrowed for FEMA projects, on reimbursement projects where you have to spend the money first and then you're reimbursed. And so you need a fund to work from to accomplish those projects all over the city, not related necessarily to the marina, but that's what that fund is there for. And so what we would do is to marry up our schedule with your requirement in your financing with Truist Bank, I believe it is, that $150 million either has to be repaid by September or October of 2027, or it has to be refinanced. And so our construction project and the money that we would use for construction, one of 2 things would happen in September of 2027. If, as a result of the charrettes, there is adequate upland development that can be constructed, where there's going to be revenue generated from that would cover the losses of the wet slip operations, then we would move forward, and as a result, the money that we have used, that you put into the project for the construction of the 50 slips would become our responsibility. So it's the construction of the 50 slips and construction of $5 million worth of upland infrastructure that's non-revenue producing. That would become our responsibility. Or if the decision of the commission following the charrettes is to not have anything on the marina, or there's not sufficient square footage for us to be able to recoup some revenue for the losses in the wet slips, then we would turn the slips back over to the city. And then the city, similar to what we're doing on St. Andrews, would cover our cost that we've proposed as 20%, as Nolan and I have talked about, which is exactly the agreement over at St. Andrews. And then the city would move forward at that point, not only with the operation of those 50 slips, but then with construction of the remaining 150 slips for a total of 200 slips that have been approved by the city for construction at the downtown marina. So I want to be clear that in the analysis that has been done by the city's consultant, by our consultant, and this is true throughout the state of Florida, wet slips cannot stand on their own. They're going to be a loss. And it is a loss, whether it's in an operations or it is the risk of the operation and maintenance damage to the infrastructure of the wet slips and the bulkhead, or it is the catastrophic loss as we experienced with the hurricane. It is a risk that just continues on, which is the nature of marinas. And so what we've tried to do at St. Andrews, and we're trying to do with the downtown marina, is to figure out a way to balance the risk for what you're trying to accomplish in providing a community amenity and having something that is not a drain on the tax revenue that you get from the different sources that you get revenue. And so what we're trying to do is to take that risk, measure that risk through financial modeling as best we can, and then project into the future the way that this can be a way for shared revenue to the city so that you make revenue off of those operations. So that is probably the best way that I can simply explain how term sheet 6 differs from the other 5 that you looked at last month. Be happy to answer any questions that any of you have.
Questions related to term sheet 6? Anyone?
Not yet.
Up here? Nothing? I think you've done such a collaborative job listening and adjusting, and it's, to me, a lot of the onus of the confusion right now is on our side, and because we didn't do the Shrets early on. And you're even hearing from the public, Mr. Zales and Mr. Thibodeau even said, hey, they mentioned ideas of buildings that they wouldn't mind seeing built. And that shows there is a willingness of the public to have certain buildings on there. And our partners are willing to build something, and we haven't told them what we want them to build. And so they're going, do you want us to do this? Do you want us to do this? And they're trying to find common ground with us. And so if we had the Shrets done a year ago or 6 months ago, we had these plans, it would be so much easier because the public would say, yeah, I like that thing. And you could then take that. Even as a developer, they're guessing on what their return could be on imaginary square footage. That's really hard.
Right.
So it's what you're seeing from the public, or what you're seeing from the developer, is the hardest form of risk, which is no details. And that's really not fair for them either. And so for me, it's really hard in this moment to go forward with a deal. Like, I want 50 wet slips, boat slips, as soon as we can. And I wish we were having conversation this collaborative when we had an idea from the Dover Coal Shrets of what the citizens want to see. It would be a whole lot less combative, and the citizens wouldn't have fear. We would know, you'd be able to have a tighter deal, and you'd be able to comp out what you could make off of small commercial spaces in the middle of on the T. If that's what the citizens want, you then could say, well, that's what this would deliver in return. It would be a lot easier for them as a developer who has to make a return, who could go broke doing this deal. And so I would like to see us move forward with construction of the slips and having these sort of conversations much later, March, April, whenever Dover Coal is having the plans presented of the public input. That's what I would prefer in this moment. Yeah.
We've already heard tonight, putting the marina back to what it was. What was the square footage on the upland when all the buildings were there?
Just from looking at aerials, it appears to be about 190,000 square feet. That's not taking into account the top floor for the curtain rise on the back of the Civic Center. So we round that up to about 200,000 square feet, with the four winds, everything down the center, the ice house, that over there, City Hall, the library, and the Civic Center was about 190,000 square feet.
So there were buildings on the marina before.
And a lot of square
Oh, a
footage.
lot of square footage.
And Mayor, if I can,
Would it be feasible to build back what was there before and it make money? Meaning a civic center, a library, non-income producing buildings? I think there's a disconnect in what was there and what we think we want or don't want and what makes it work. And I think that's the concern I'm hearing from the citizens is we don't know what's going to be there. That's great, but what was there didn't produce quality of life in terms of you go hang out, you can go to a show, you can do that, but you don't just go hang out and sit in a green space or something like that. So if you were to produce something that made money, we get to share in that revenue, correct?
that's correct.
So talk about the slips, money that comes off the slips versus money that comes off the upland, where that money can go. Let's help, how
Okay.
that can be shared, if at all.
But before I answer that, let me say this, and I hate to go over this again with the commission, but for people who may have not have heard this before, in 1957, when there was a bond issue to construct both marinas, there were commercial activities on both marinas that were required as part of the bond issue because there was not sufficient revenue to pay the bonds where the city borrowed the money to build both marinas. And that is still the case. That is just the nature of marinas. Now, to your question about, what would be the uses and how do we move forward with the funding, revenue sharing is a term that we use. Currently, we have a sovereign submerged land lease on each marina. Any revenue derived by, and it's a fee waived, so the state does not participate in the revenue share of the money that is generated from the wet slips. And it is a long-term lease, which the cabinet approved in 2013, 2014, because of the economic disrepair of downtown and St. Andrews. The statute allowed them to have a long-term lease rather than it just be 5 years. And so in those, typically in the sovereign submerged land lease, there's a percentage of the revenue that the city takes off of that goes to the state of Florida because it's their land, where the wet slips are. The remaining money that the city makes that's not paid to the state, the city has to keep that on the marina because of the inherent problems with wet slips and bulkhead repair and replacement. And so all of that money stays there in a fund that, similar to you have an enterprise fund for water and sewer that can only be used for water and sewer. This can only be used on the marina for the wet slips. Now, if there is upland development, whatever revenue is generated from that, from sales tax, ad valorem tax, gross receipts tax, assessments, whatever, all the different things that the city does, all of that money goes into general revenue. So that is a significant, and you have your own consultants who can do that analysis. And contrary to what a gentleman said earlier about, us building a hotel, we haven't proposed a hotel. And we, we have talked with St. Joe about it. They have their hotel out there and they have the right of first use. And we're not proposing to do anything that is competitive to them. We are trying to find things that are complementary. But the challenge of that is we are exposing ourselves to the Dover Cole charrette process here at the very end of almost 2 years of all of this, for the public to come in and say, this is what we think ought to be on this property. And, we said last time, a dog park or an aquarium or, whatever, all these different things that are things that we may enjoy, but if they are not financially feasible, then we're in a deeper hole if we go out there and spend money on something that doesn't work. And, I drove up and down, I drive up and down Harrison Avenue every day, but today, with all of Harrison Avenue being open, you know, it takes my breath away when I look at the 400 and 500 block of Harrison Avenue that is essentially vacant. There's a lot of square footage there that has been up for lease and for sale for a long time. And just because we go put something out there on the marina does not mean that it's going to be successful. And so what I envision in this process is that the public comes in, and hopefully hundreds and thousands of people will come in and give all of their ideas, because we need the public to support whatever it is. And they may want tacos, or they may want, you know, a Ferris wheel, or whatever the thing is. I don't know what it is, but they come in and say all that, and we need, you know, they may say a grocery store. We had a group, you know, last week that came in, or week before last, that made a big presentation to us and said, we want a Publix on the marina, and we want all these different things on the marina. But it has to be feasible for us to be able to do that, because, you know, the difficulty is you go build tens of millions of dollars worth of what you think is going to work. It doesn't work. And now what do you do? It's a huge problem.
Really bad for you, embarrassing for us.
Yes.
And so certainly want the public to hear that. I think after the charrettes, or during the charrettes, we're going to have real conversations of, hey, if you guys want a splash pad or a dog park or a Ferris wheel thing, those don't make money. That they could be compensated these or subsidized these ways using upland developments. And that's why I think those are the real conversations, because we all want dog parks and walking paths, and we don't want to pay for them.
Right.
And we want to avoid the situation, to me, I want to avoid the situation, I'm only one person up here, that the St. Andrews Marina has, which is the bulkhead repair and the deferred maintenance of it. So for me, a lot of my desire is to have reoccurring revenue in that area, whether it's boat slips or upland development, that doesn't pass along. I want to have in that fund to where when the railing gets bent, we've all been out there before where the railing's bent, they put orange tape on it for a year and a half, and you go to St. Andrews and all the sidewalks are collapsing in.
Right.
We want to avoid that, and that has to happen through planning to repair those things. You know, the benches get rusty, right? All those kind of things. And so I don't want to pass down to our children a $25 million bulkhead repair that they're not saving up for. And so those are the real conversations that I think we're going to be having when we see what public amenities the public wants, and we say, here's how we get to there. They don't happen. The general fund can't subsidize everything.
That's right.
This is a money in, money out organization like anything else, and we can't just have things that go out all the time. So I'm looking forward to those conversations. Anyone else want to ask any questions or have any comments? Everyone's very quiet up here tonight. Well, I don't have any other questions for Mr. Harrison. Do we want to open up public comments? You can comment again if you've heard something. You can ask questions. Mr. Harrison might come up again, but we want to hear your input. Come on, Judy Stapleton. I know you want to talk.
Come on, Judy.
Looking around all shy. Come on up, Ms. Stapleton. Yes, ma'am.
Judy Stapleton, 542 South Bonita, Panama City.
Can you pull the mic a little bit closer?
Sure. Is that better?
Better.
I listen and I listen. And what I hear is we can't make any money on our city except if we use the marina. We have to have the money from developing the marina to make our city solvent. Pretty much what I hear, because I say and other people say, look downtown, look at the empty buildings, look at the empty lots. You're doing a wonderful job creating incentives for CMPs or other people. Why not create incentives for people to develop those things for housing and for retail downtown? I know that there are cities, I read about them, that develop a downtown and on their waterfront develop waterfront properties, marina parks, where people can go and enjoy it for leisure. I don't know that we could do that. I keep hearing we can't. If you're going to do it, remove the identity marker, Panama City Marina, because it will not be a marina. Just put a sign up saying South Harrison, because that's what it's going to be. The citizens will then still be able to walk and stroll around the promenade. We can look out at the water and enjoy the view. We can look at the buildings, the 225 possibly residents on the marina, and see what their view is. We can also enjoy, I suppose, shopping at some of the other shops, 300,000 square feet of shops and residents. We can enjoy looking at those. We can probably enjoy eating at Harrison's. Some people can enjoy boating as long as there's still parking for their trucks and their trailers, until you find out that you need that parking for the residents and for the shops. You have a choice, and I recognize that it's so difficult. You're either going to have to use what I hear referred to all the time as our treasure to develop it to make money, or you're going to have to figure out ways to use the land and the buildings inside the city for your money.
Yes.
Thanks.
And I just want to respond to a little bit of that. We do have, this is CRA district, which is community redevelopment, and we have some of the strongest tax incentives in the state for rebating of construction on non-city property. But adding, we do have a lot of vacant buildings, a lot of vacant land. That indicates the lack of interest of other people wanting to invest in our town. It shows that people would rather invest other places. And so that means it's harder for them, not easier for them. Even showing the vacant buildings on Harrison Avenue, that doesn't make a bank look at a project in favorable. It makes it look at a bank and go, is your project not going to get filled up? And so there is a counterbalance to that, and that is and Mr. Harrison touched on it, is projects can get built and you go bankrupt because they don't hit the numbers that you're guessing at. So I did want to say that. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Do I need my address?
Yes,
again?
please.
544 East 6th Street, Corey Ash.
Thank you.
So your point was spot on, and I've just been listening, and I looked over the CMP, was a little bit confused. Now I have some clarity. But what it seems to me, we come to this thing where we want to get some things, but we don't want to pass on that responsibility to, the older, the people that live here, us, right? So the opportunity is, it's either on one hand you raise the taxes on the people who live here, or on the other hand, you bring in more people to split that tax load with. So if I'm here, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So the deal that CMP put forward right now gets you 50 slips for $10 million at $200,000 a slip. And that's I'm using the round numbers. I think the gentleman said it was 10 million in total, with the city doing some reimbursement and then them doing some addition. I'm a simple kind of guy, so I take the whole number divided by 50. I don't know if $200,000 per slip is a good number, because I've never bought a boat slip, but I would ask, does that, what think I've heard him say, just for a little piece of clarity, once you spend that money, there's not an estimation of getting that money back. So we would need to make it economically viable. And so just to the point, I'm what you would consider an outside investor, I guess. I'm from here. My family's been here for a very, very long time. But when you approach to make an investment, Dove and Mule, I think, they did a report and they said, hey, you guys, we want a lot of great stuff that the community's given us feedback on, but our actual zoning policies don't permit that. Now, if I could, I just want to say, when you get ready to build a grocery store and you go to the bank, they look at the people around that grocery store, they look at how many houses are there, what their income. is, have you considered ways of enriching the current people who live here by adjusting the zoning to make their properties more valuable without increasing the tax base, but then new people who come in would be purchasing the right to build something maybe a little bit bigger on their lot? Not overwhelming, but just something, another way to generate some revenue if no one's thought about it. So, sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments? And we have adjusted our land development code a few times. We've adopted the Dover Cole recommendations of the neighborhood plans, and even downtown had a rezoning, rewriting of the code in 2008, which has higher density, no parking, 0 setbacks, and no stormwater ponds.
So with that, and I've done a little bit of studying, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up
Jerry,
your
will
time.
you give him my card so he can email me that article?
Sure. And I've done a little bit of
Sir,
studying.
I'm sorry, you need to go to the mic. Just people online are listening.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So with that, with the adjustments, we're a small city, all right? So with the adjustments, they're still like about yay thick. The only people that are going to make it through that yay thick policy to make a solid investment is St. Joe Company, who's going to pay their attorneys, lawyers, and all the others. And every investor isn't necessarily that way. But, you know, I'm all about homegrown. So is there any way that...
I'd be happy to meet with you and the city planner and go over the land development code with you.
And that gentleman as well with the CMP? Because
Michael Fuller and I can meet with you about the land development code if you want to give him a card.
I know Mike.
Yeah, happy to go over with
Thank you.
He's got my contact.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
again.
Absolutely.
Hey, Alan.
Hello.
Hey, Robbie. Frank Castle, 1011 East Second Plaza. Thank you for the handouts earlier. A lot of good stuff. I like that there's a culinary option there. I'm assuming that's going to be FSU doing some sort of cooking place there. As a citizen that's lived here, my concern is the financial maintainability of it, which y'all seem to be doing, and to please just move forward. Just please, let's move forward. Because the storm was 7 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Christian Moser, 311 Massalina Drive. I agree with that gentleman. Keep the faith, keep moving forward. I just want to make sure if I misunderstood, and I knew I had to come up here. Did I hear the LTA is going to be brought back to the commission for reconsideration, or was it just a portion of it in December?
LTA. The LTA?
The LTA?
Long-term agreement.
That's referenced in the plan, the LTA? Maybe I misunderstood.
We don't have a
that.
long-term agreement
Well,
yet.
if it's going to be brought back for a long-term agreement and it's based on the charrettes are just being completed. So I'm not certain of that timeline, if I've misunderstood that or if that's an incorrect timeline. And secondly, I know it was 300,000 square feet and now it's 200. Is that because the 200 doesn't include the hotel and Harrison's, correct? So the 190,000 square feet that were on the marina previously, that total would,
Be the same, but just not on the Indigo side.
I see what you're saying. You're saying the previous square footage of what it used to be
Right.
might already be met with the current buildings that are.
I was just
on
wondering if you'd done a consideration of what the overall coverage will be, because the Indigo's where, the library was, Robbie, and the ice house and all that. And
Right.
just curious if there's what the percentage is, if we know that before versus after with Indigo, Harrison's plus 200. But my big question was, can the LTA be approved without the charrettes being completed? Thank you.
The answer to your question on the square footage is the Indigo and Harrison's is not included in the 200, okay? And the long-term agreement, William's going to answer that question for you.
Hey, Chris. No, you were right. You were right. So, what we've proposed in the term sheet, and this would be carried over into the long-term agreement, is that we're going to proceed on with construction. And however long it takes Dover Cole to do the charrettes and issue a report and the city accept that, all that will be done before we're finished with construction of the 50 slips. And if the decision of the commission, based on the public input, is to leave the marina just like it is, then we would have an exit ramp to say, okay, we can't get enough upland revenue support from the vertical construction, and so we're going to exit stage right and hand the 50 slips back to the city, and then you pay us a reasonable profit and overhead, and then we'll be out of it at that point, and then you can proceed on how you'd like. But if there is adequate vertical upland construction that can be done that would generate some revenue and reduce the risk for the kind of things, Mayor, that you're talking about on the bulkhead and upkeep the slips and generate revenue to the city, then we'll proceed on with that. And we will, at that point, we'll have the long-term agreement in place that will continue on.
The long-term agreement's really two parts. It gives us an agreement to move forward with the slips, I think.
Correct.
And then the other part is subject to all public charrettes, all Dover Coal stuff. Once that comes back, that's where the long-term agreement, if we all stay together, that's where it comes into play, right?
That's correct.
That's where that agreement moves.
But also part of that is, there is 55 years left in the agreement between the city and St. Joe, where the city needs to send, whatever it is that we're doing to St. Joe, and they have the ability to make a decision. They may like, what comes out of the charrette and decide that they want to build it all. Or they may take a pass on it and say, looks good, we have no objection, but we're not going to build it, you go build it. And then we would proceed on with that. And so we may all agree on what it is that we want to do, but your agreement with St. Joe allows them to come in and take over the whole thing. And if that happens, then, that'll send us down a different route. But that's a possibility.
But that's a first right of use, not a first right, that's not a veto
It's not a veto, right?
for the public.
Yes, ma'am.
Clarify that, what would St. Joe have the first right to?
Actually, Nevin, can you clarify that? Nevin, could you speak to what St. Joe's rights are?
Nevin?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
The question,
What is St. Joe's written first right of use?
yes, the city executed a long-term lease agreement with St. Joe, I believe in 2020, August of 2020. In that, to encourage St. Joe to invest the money that it did, which was $35 to $40 million, it asked for a right of first use on the remainder of the marina. The marina site is approximately 22 or 3 acres. The site that is directly leased to St. Joe is L-shaped. It includes the Harrison Restaurant, the green space in between Harrison's Restaurant and Hotel Indigo. And they said that they would like to have the right of first use. So if the city proposed to build something that St. Joe had a different idea, first of all, there would be a third party could come in and propose something, or the city could propose something. The city would then show it to St. Joe, and it would be very specific. It says, we want to build, I'm trying not to give an example. I will not talk about aquariums tonight. Yeah. So we're going to build something, and these are the terms. St. Joe, are you interested in doing that? Under the lease, St. Joe has 60 days, some time period to say, yes, I'm interested in doing that, and I'll do it for the same terms, or very comparable terms, and this is what I'll do. Or St. Joe could say, I'm not interested, but have you thought about this, and propose an alternative. The city is under an obligation to consider in good faith
the alternative. It is not under an obligation to do the alternative. And St. Joe doesn't have a veto right. And so one check and balance in this process is that if a third party came in and the deal was very advantageous to the vendor, St. Joe could look at that and say, I like that idea, I'll do it. So it is kind of a check and balance to make sure everyone is coming up with something that's fair to all parties. So it's not a veto, it's a right of first use.
Yes, public comments are still up. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't answer your question about the 300,000 and the 200,000. The 300,000 is an estimate that we took from 3 different conceptual plans that the city had commissioned from Wooden Partners, Dover Coal in 2019. I think the Wooden Partners has been within the last year. Dover Coal was in 2019, and then John Anderson's drawing in 2024. And so we took those conceptual drawings and just estimated what the square footage was of those drawings for the upland uses. We were not involved in any of those drawings. The city didn't ask us. The people who drew those pictures didn't ask us. But we took from that the estimate of about 300,000 square feet.
Thank you. Just to give more background, Sandy, you're welcome to come on up. The drawings that Mr. Harrison mentioned, John Anderson, were in the initial early conversations. We were talking about square footage, and I can't visualize what that much square footage looks like. So we had hired an hourly draftsman architect. I said, just draw it what you think would be on the marina, because I just can't, we need something. So all of this has been an attempt of me as well, just trying to get the visualization is what do these buildings look like? And that's what I think the Shredds are going to do, hopefully. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so thanks for having me up again. It's Sandy Marlisa. I've already stated my address. So when CMP talks about the square footage, and he stated very rightly that there was 190,000 square feet already on the marina, yeah, that is true in terms of square footage, but the functionality of those buildings are very different than what is being proposed now. The functionality of those buildings were public buildings. A library, a place to go see the sunset, a place to go fish, the Civic Center. The Civic Center is a public building. I performed on that as a school child all the way from like 4 all the way up until my adulthood. This was a public place for our people. And I think what is really being lost here is that while we can argue this in terms of square footage and say it's the same, there's a difference between even like what's being proposed with the private versus public partnership here, whether or not, who owns the deed to what's being proposed here versus who owns the functionality of what is being proposed here, which is in, I think, every extent of the word, in reality, who owns it, which is the functional use of this space. And so when we talk about these buildings, we need to make sure that they are for the public. And right now, we are talking about a private organization, as well-meaning and as well-intentioned, as wonderful as they are, determining who can use the facilities that are on this public space and making it into a profitable place for a private company. But that is not at all what we had before. We had public use buildings. And we talk about marinas losing money. Well, they only lose money if a private investor is investing in it and putting millions of dollars up. And if the city rebuilds it with funding, that other optional funding, which I can't wait to get to, that is listed in this packet, then they'll break even. We can look at things like the Apalachicola Marina, or the, somebody mentioned the St. Augustine Marina. Marinas don't need upland development to function. They just don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Ma'am, everything that's built, ma'am, everything that gets built on the marina, you asked about who owns it. we as Panama City citizens own everything that is built in the water and on the upland. The investor does not. The minute that they build it vertically, they put a slab on the ground. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to us because she lives in Lynn Haven. We live in Panama City. It belongs to us, okay? So I want to be clear about that. And that's not a jab at it, that's the difference is, okay? We own it, or they're not. I just want to be clear that that's who owns it, yes.
But to add, I think what you mean is if there's a huge shortfall in the marina, the Panama City citizens pay for the shortfall.
No. Well, but who owns the dirt and who owns the buildings? We do. Whether we pay for them or not, we own them.
Can I add?
Yes, sir.
I think there's two groups of folks, I think, kind of in two different, the folks that have been here a very long time probably remember the commercial on the marina.
Yeah.
And the folks kind of in my age group and younger, and anybody who's new to the area do not, because it was all demoed. So that was something that was kind of a surprise to me when first started trying to tackle this issue, was that that there was actual commercial, like people, restaurants and whatnot on the marina prior, and that was how it was designed and it was built in the 50s. So I do want to say that because there are a lot of people out there who just don't know. They don't know that existed, and then there's a lot of people out there who do remember it. And so it's kind of like two different conflicting experiences with the citizenry that we have. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up because I was also one of those people that was like, well, there's never been any commercial in the marina. And then I found out, oh yeah, there has. So I'm done.
Yes,
I'd like
sir.
to come up, Eric.
Derek Thomas, 1100 West 10th Street. I came out here from Louisiana, and after Hurricane Katrina, they built up Baton Rouge. They were going to move all of the government buildings, offices from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. And so they built these beautiful towers, and it was spectacular. They borrowed a bunch of money. And then when it was time to open them up, they had no parking. So they had to buy a piece of land, the closest they get, was about 7 blocks away, and they built a parking garage. But by the time the parking garage was finished, the people that had been in New Orleans decided to just rebuild their offices and stay there. So this big giant tower is sitting there still about 20% unused, and all the people park in the surrounding area because why walk 7 blocks when you could just park in the neighborhood? So when you're building this, if you don't have a parking space for every marina slip, if you don't have a parking space for all of the tables at all of the restaurants and for every apartment there, and have that already blocked off on your parking at the marina, then you don't have any place for the public to park. Because after you've done that, after you've taken the public parking lot that you've already built and you put a building there, then there's no public parking anymore. And if you're out on the T-dock where you've already spent $150,000 for trees that might be in 5 years big enough that that would be a shaded area the public could hang out on and enjoy it, but where's the public going to park? If you take away all of the parking and build the upland, then there's not going to be any place for the public to park unless they park in a parking garage and walk to the marina. And what if it rains? I mean, by the time this lets out tonight, it's going to be pouring down rain tonight. Imagine that if you're trying to use the marina, and forget just going there and watching the sunset and using that marina if you wanted to for the next 55 years. I think that's too long to wait. So consider that. And how much is that sea break going to cost? So I can come out of here with.
It's not permitted yet or designed, but it'll probably be several $1 million.
Several million. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, I've heard the number $150,000 for trees on the marina. Can you clarify that?
What now?
I've heard multiple times $150,000 for trees, and please let us know what those trees cost. I've heard it multiple times.
Okay, talking about the oak trees that we put around. I don't have that number with me, but
Can you find that number?
I will find that out, sir.
Because I've heard it
Yes.
multiple times.
So.
Thank you. Yes, anyone else? I suspect it's a little bit less than that, but I want to know for sure.
Bob Zales II, 1906 Tyndall Drive. I didn't know you could come up here multiple times, so I appreciate being able to, because y'all hit on a couple of things. Number one, when you talk about new residents versus those of us that have lived here for a long time. My family came to Panama City in '65. I was 12 years old. Got in the fishing business, and when I talk about the heritage and the history of that marina is where fishing started and boating started in Panama City years and years ago. My family was involved in recent history since '65. In the business that I've been in, the for hire and commercial business for 58 years since '65, I was fortunate to have met and known and worked with old timers that were here when that marina started. Put the boats there, the Queen Fleet, the Davises, all those people. That's where all that started. When you look at Bay County, Panama City, and you look at the tourism business, that all came from fishing. Currently, I'm the executive director of Southeastern Fisheries Association, the oldest commercial association in the state of Florida, formed in 1952. Commercial fishing, there's two food producers in this country. You've got aquaculture, farmers and ranchers. You've got seafood. Seafood were the first food producers in this country. The people that came and founded this country, they produced seafood. This industry and the heritage and the history that goes along with it is important. The citizens that live here and have been part of this forever understand that. And that's why I've stressed that marina, you don't need to reinvent it. Pre-October of 18, that marina was doing fine. City, I think, was making money. You weren't throwing money at it and whatever. Hurricane destroyed it. You have to start over. You don't need to reinvent the thing. Put it back like it was. Put the marina store, the fuel, the ice. You can get out and research. You got two prime tackle shops in Bay County, Howell Tackle and Half Hitch. They may be interested in putting a tackle shop at that marina. I don't know. I suspect they would, because you look at what's happened with downtown, y'all have done a pretty good job. I'm not real happy about the width of the roads and whatnot that's there, but you've done a pretty good job of bringing people back down to Panama City, okay? So it's kind of like you build it, they'll come. You put that marina back, you put the boats in there for people to look at and to enjoy and to use. You have the infrastructure there for people to sit on the grass, on the benches, watch the sunset, create an amphitheater, bring people in here. You got 4th of July. You used to have hundreds of boats in the bay watching fireworks. Lately, that doesn't happen because they don't have a place to do it from. You get the marina rolling again, you bring all that back. There's your money, there's your infrastructure. The city will prosper from that. Just do the basic stuff and then let it grow from there.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am. You're good at it, though. Don't be nervous. Take a deep breath.
Mary Andrew, St. Andrews. I just have a question on the Phase 2. If the uplands were developed, would condos be an option to be put in there? And if so, would they have the slips developed specifically for those condos? That's my question.
It's a good question. Thank you. What was the question? The question of could they build condos and could those slips have, or could those condos have slips?
William Harrison, 101 Harrison Avenue. We have not proposed any particular use. And I know a lot of potential uses have been assigned to us. We have not proposed anything. We're waiting on the charrettes. We'll see what the charrettes show. And, my personal preference is to not put condominiums out there. And, I think that for financial feasibility purposes, I think residential is a good use out there because we need daily activities to support downtown. And so what would that be? Is it, here again, trying to not be, and we won't be competitive with Indigo, but being complementary to them. There's a lot of revenue that can be derived to the city that goes into the general revenue of the city if there are short-term rentals that are less than 6 months, because you generate bed tax and all that. But all this is subject to what the public charrettes are and what comes out of all that. But we have not proposed condominiums and specifically certainly not assigning or transferring a boat slip to a condominium. We have never said that or proposed it or thought about it. So all that will be on a first come, first served basis, which is the requirement of the sovereign submerged land lease.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Jennifer Vigil, 101 West Beach Drive, President and CEO of Destination Panama City. Just want to say that so that it's very transparent. I was asked to come up and speak tonight to directly talk about the impact of not having the marina and what it has had on the local economy. I don't think that a lot of people realize, and Commissioner Granger, I greatly appreciate you saying that you didn't realize that there were restaurants and private industry on the marina years ago. One of my favorite things to say at local speeches, I speak at the Rotary, at the Lions Club, all of them, the Ladies Auxiliary, everywhere. And everybody always has questions about what's going on with the city. And you know, when I used to give this speech 10 years ago, Destination Panama City is 10 years old. When I used to give this speech 10 years ago, I used to have to say, welcome to Panama City. It's the only city in Northwest Florida that has a negative population growth. We're the only city in Northwest Florida not growing. We knew that the Marina Civic Center was in disrepair. We actually went ahead and did the pre-application for the Triumph Grant well before the hurricane for rehabilitation of that structure. Stan Jones was a wonderful marina director, but even when Stan Jones was here before the hurricane, there were plans to redevelop the marina and make improvements on it because it was not conducive to the citizenship. One of the great parts about government after 30 years is that citizens don't really change, but what I realize is their perception is directly related to when they enter the conversation. Before Destination Panama City got started in our efforts, they actually went and did what I think today you guys call a charrette, but it was when they went to the citizens and asked the citizens of Panama City how they wanted us to represent them as a tourist destination, because they didn't want the culture changed. They wanted Panama City to represent what Panama City meant to locals. In doing that, there's about a 135-page document called the 2015 Tourism Development and Economic Impact Report. In that report, citizens, they went out and interviewed citizens. They did charrettes. They did all of those things. They spent $134,000 on that report back in 2014 to make sure we had a visioning document going forward in 2015. The hurricane happened in 2018. So the city did a series of charrettes to find out whether or not the citizens still wanted the things that they wanted before the hurricane. It is eye-opening to see that what they wanted in the 2015 report is the exact same thing that they wanted in 2018 after the hurricanes and in 2019. It's still some of the same things that they look at today. So I really encourage you to not have us wait another 7 years before we get some of the amenities back, because you make my job really hard. When the hurricane happened, I had 5 amenities. Now I only have 1, and that's St. Andrews Bay. So we really need to start putting back the 4 amenities.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Thank you. One last thought. Frank DePinto, 801 West 13th Street. I would, in the planning process, I'd make it mandatory when looking at the downtown and looking at the marina, that a full analysis is done. Whatever is done to the marina how will that affect, good or bad, downtown area? So you have a competition there. If you have more restaurants you want to put restaurants in the marina, but you have businesses up downtown that are going broke and stores closing, how is that going to affect them? You need a balance and an analysis for whatever's done at the marina. How will that affect downtown? Panama City's at a disadvantage. It's not on a thoroughfare to Panama City Beach, 15th Street, 23rd. Those are all thoroughfares. You have a lot of traffic, you have a lot of people, you have a lot of advertisement for buildings along 15th and 23rd. Panama City, you got to go out of your way. And so that handicaps Panama City. So you got to think about how you're going to overcome those handicaps. And that's another critical planning thought that needs to be taken into concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Welcome.
Hello. I don't really need to be the microphones. Fletcher Dillmore, 309 East 23rd Street. Just want to come and say I support this project. Seems like a great idea. Look forward to seeing a new marina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, closing public comments. Moving on to memo on financing options. Does anyone want to take the lead on that conversation?
I do have a couple questions.
Yes.
So Jan, I got to review what you sent. A couple things. You were just saying that the district doesn't extend beyond the T-docks and the uplands, but not that we couldn't expend funds on a dock or something.
I believe the CRA and DIB funds have to be spent in the area.
Yeah.
I don't think you can expand the area. I'm assuming you can expand the area into the
What
water.
I'm asking is from, and this is just my understanding, and we just adopted a plan for the CRA, which included this. But the CRA funds could be used to go and build a dock. There's no
Inside the area.
So Jonathan Hayes and I had a conversation with
Boynton Beach, correct.
Boynton Beach. So there's a couple different models of CRA-owned marinas in South Florida. They actually do extend their boundaries into the water so that they can spend the money in the water.
We didn't do that.
We haven't done that. We could, if we wanted to have the long-term debt on the CRA. So any sort of upland development then pays for the financing of the boat slips. You could do that if you expand it. Now, we could use CRA to build promenades and parking spaces and infrastructure and all those kind of things, but we can't use it past the boundary, and the boundary's at the edge.
Okay, that's new information to me. That's what I wanted to ask.
But if I may, Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, it would be very similar to expanding any other CRAs.
Yes,
You'd have to go out and do the
yeah,
finding of
do
necessity,
studies
and you're looking at a 12 to 18-month process and
that
probably
doesn't
50 to
seem-
70K.
So then my next question is, it sounds like there are potential for certain grants, there's potential for certain things, but obviously those have extended timelines too. So based upon your report, what I'm not in favor of, and I'll go ahead and communicate this, I'm not in favor of using infrastructure surtax. And the reason why is our citizens expect their roads to be repaired, and so that's really where that money needs to stay. Also, not in favor of general fund, but if we could flip the use of the FEMA grant to use on slips, I think that's kind of what I'm reading into your thing of what you were thinking and what you were saying. And then look at, on the upland side, a potential backfilling with CRAs, DIB, and things like that that's already eligible. So I think that's a pretty
So the other
reasonable
option
plan.
So are you in favor of creating debt to move forward for the citizens?
I think from what and this is just my opinion, I think that, I think there is a large concern, not just with us. Just 5 days ago, there was a P3 partnership on a South Florida marina that pulled back over concerns of overdevelopment on public spaces. And so I think that there's a concern, not just locally, but abroad, of being too aggressive with development, specifically as we've gone through one of the highest growth percentages we've ever seen in the state of Florida. And so I think we need to do the diligence through the time to go through public charrettes, and we need to do all that before we start making commitments or even the thought of making a commitment. So I'm in favor of utilizing the funding options that we have at our disposal currently to get started on the 50. And then that gives us enough time to go through a public process and see what the citizens really want to see on the marina. And then we can give them good options to that. So just moving forward blindly, I'm not in favor of that, but we do have the FEMA grant that's available. We also have, the variety of funding sources that are here. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. So that's why I've been pretty quiet this whole time. I'm kind of already.
But that doesn't answer my question. Are you in favor of creating debt? Because funding sources is debt. And we're going to get a loan for us to go and build this. And no matter who's on the other side, are we okay with creating more debt to create this?
Well, if we use the FEMA funding, we're not creating new debt. We're using the existing debt that we already have.
Okay, but it's got to be paid back.
Well,
by 2027.
We can't even answer that question if we went with term sheet 6, because if we can't.
Well, we can, but
if we
that's
can't
not
get
the
the
question about term
uplands,
sheet.
then we have
I'm
to still
asking
pay for it.
a direct
And we're still
question
creating
of,
debt.
are we okay with creating debt? That's all I want to know.
I can't hear you.
That's all I want to know.
Isn't, but with the term sheet 6, if they walk away from any, we're like, we can't get you any uplands, and they walk away, we still have to create long-term debt to then pay for the slips.
We've already created it by the time we get to that, because we funded the build. Either we've already paid for the slips up front, and they're
We
building.
don't have ability to pay for the slips up front.
Yeah, we
have the
do.
ability to
On
use a
$150
temporary,
million loan.
which is debt.
Right.
So we're all saying we're okay with using debt.
To the extent.
I didn't do that.
No, I'm not.
I just want to avoid that.
I'm not. No, I'm not. That's what I'm asking. Yeah, I'm not. So, but we use that money, and and what term sheet 6 does for us is gives us an opportunity to have that repaid back, assuming that everything with the citizen stuff went okay, and we have a partner. If not, we also have slips and a
But we
debt.
could still have that same piece at the end of this. So
Yes,
there's no
FEMA-
difference.
FEMA will pay
So-
it back. FEMA will pay it back.
If we use FEMA funding, they're paying it back. Then we have the opportunity to look at it and say, hey, if we want to use somebody for a management contract, do we want them to pay us back what our investment?
So we're talking about going through the EHP process. Then is that what you're saying to get the money paid back, the reimbursement?
Can I just?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, there are sacrifices to be made no matter which funding mechanism you choose, if you choose one of these funding mechanisms. Like you mentioned, the infrastructure surtax, you're going to give up the roads, right? You're going to not be able to fund the roads that you want to. If you choose the FEMA grant, it's either got to be, you got to cut back the footprint, or you have to go through the EHP process. If you use the Environmental Services Fund, then chances are they might have not be able to buy the equipment that they need in a timely manner.
What was the plan, like, we have money in the Environmental Services Fund to fund this ourselves, what are we giving up to fund that, if we use that?
A street sweeper.
These
kids, nothing but love.
I just think we have an ability. Here's what I heard, and this is what I got from Jan's memo. There's no reason to put ourselves into a spot where we have to do something when we don't have to do something. We can actually walk a process with our citizens to build more trust rather than eroding it by trying to take 2 steps in advance and potentially backing ourselves into a corner that we may not want to do.
Because what did you just say? Because I don't understand what you
I
said.
think, though, the building the 50 slips would probably go to building trust.
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
Right.
That's true.
So we all agree with
and
that.
giving a process in which people can communicate what they want to see back on the marina that they own. I think that is a great process.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing.
I don't think anybody argues that.
so either.
No.
Okay.
My question is debt.
Yeah,
That's my big concern.
that's where I'm at.
Is I think your process sounds good, But all it does is create, well, by their numbers, we're going to have $9 million in debt.
The
and then
only
we're gonna have-
process that does not create debt in this scenario, long-term debt, is using the FEMA funds to go and build the first 50.
And I want to give you and Commissioner Granger props, really you. What y'all suggested on financing, we can actually make money on the proposal that was given to us by us fronting the money and building it, the slips, and we can make 0.25% interest on the money. So between maybe $250,000 and $300,000, because they would pay us that if we did business with them, okay? So right now, who's going to build that for us is what I want to know. And we're going to create debt. Because their proposal means they build it, they're working for Panama City. We're in charge of the money. We're in charge of all the ordering. There's no upcharge to it. So from there, whatever the number is, that total in their proposal, they've agreed to pay us 0.25% on the total balance in a lump sum. Okay? To me, that's congratulations. Thank y'all for coming up with a way to make us money, because every other thing so far is costing us money on the front side. I just want to point that out, and that's a pretty cool idea. And I want to give y'all props for that. I don't know that you realize what you're walking into but Josh, you look confused. Is that?
Yeah,
I am.
Term sheets are supposed to give you,
Term sheet 6 gives you.
as deals progress, there should be more and more clarity. This doesn't give clarity to us or to citizens.
It's exactly what y'all asked for.
No, what I'm asking for is to put out, I want to put out for bid the designs, and I want to know how much that costs, and I want to fund that ourselves. I don't really care about long-term debt. I want to be able to control the uplands and the process for that. Because we could always extend it. There are we have 4 or 5 options here, including expanding the CRA district, the Environmental Services Fund. So I'm not desperately trying to, I'm trying to give clarity to the deal, not less clarity. And the first of these slips might just be us building them ourselves, and we're talking about all this again when we have the designs and the charrettes, when we have clarity. And citizens might be excited about the square footage. I don't know, because no one knows what they're building yet.
So long-term debt is probably the biggest pole in the tent for me.
Yep.
And the reason why is because, A, I don't want to raise taxes on any of the citizens in Panama City. And B, we have a state legislature that is currently trying to figure out a way to get rid of property taxes on at least homestead people, which I support, but that's going to cause us to have to rethink our budget with less money. So adding debt at a time when we know that we could be potentially looking at even tightening down, 3 belt loops instead of 1, is not a good idea to me.
I think that's a deep hypothetical to lose control in the uplands.
Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying is that going into debt shouldn't be the direction that we move forward with that.
The concept of making the decision to take the 5 million, go do the first 50 slips, in turn, does everything that we're talking about right now.
Except that doesn't include the MEP. That doesn't include the utilities from Harrison's down.
That's all upland, so CRA, DIB, those are all available funding sources for those particular things.
Okay,
And so,
okay. That's fair. That can be used.
it seems to be
But
the
they have to
most
go bond that money, right?
reasonable- It seems to me to be the most reasonable path to ensuring that we have the best way to navigate conversations with our citizens as well as control the actual end of the outcome. Otherwise, we're kind of just saying, well, this could happen, this might happen, and you get into all these other variables. The only one that I see that is clearly defined is the one that I just said, to me.
Ms. Olivia, can you give us a breakdown of what it would take to build the slips back with FEMA money?
Yes, thank you. That was.
I have a question, though, before I give a timeline.
Just name and title for the
sorry.
public, thank you.
Olivia Schmidt, the Integrity Group consultant, FEMA consultant, not other consultant. I do have a question about the permitting, the waivered permitting. I'm assuming it's the 404 waiver?
Yeah, it's
The USACE? Okay. So is that through you, or does that go to the city? The city has it. Okay, so you guys have the waiver, and you have the ER permit already too? So there's a 404 permit, and then there's the ER permit. A waiver on one is not a waiver on the other. And I'm only asking this because it does change timelines if you don't have both.
We have a full waiver. It's the same thing that we're constructing St. Andrews with.
Okay.
For the 50 though.
You mean the ERP?
The first, it's just it's a ERP. It's an environmental resource permit.
Yeah, ERP, same thing, but it's
Yeah,
we're good
sorry.
for the 50.
Okay,
Mr.
so 50 is
Harrison
good.
correct, yes.
Okay, so the only, if you used your 5 million for that, I haven't seen the new footprint, and I don't know what the original footprint was and whether or not the current proposed plan expands over the original footprint. But as we've said on multiple occasions, if you expand more than 20% of the original footprint, FEMA will require a full environmental assessment through NEPA. And a waiver, a 404 waiver and even the ERP waiver is not going to get you out of a NEPA assessment.
So what's that time frame?
Yeah.
That's really difficult to, so.
18 months?
12 to 18 months would probably be.
For 50 slips.
No, yeah, for 50 slips. But I mean, we would go ahead and submit the whole project if you had it, so you wouldn't be held up again. Now, you will be held up on the 51 plus because of your need for the 404 and the ERP, but the NEPA waiver would be covered. The NEPA assessment would do the entire marina, not just the 50 slips. I would not suggest you do that. I would do the entire marina approval for environmental assessment.
Would that hold up the 50 slips?
Not any more than the 50 slips being held up by that same assessment. Like, it's gonna be, you're gonna do 50 slips is gonna take you the same amount of time to do all 200.
But we don't have design on the other basin yet.
Nor do we have we have the permit for the 50, and the engineering will be done on that this month.
Yeah.
The other has got to be permitted and designed and engineered.
Right, so, yeah, you're gonna be held up on the other anyway.
But we don't have FEMA money for that anyway.
But you don't have FEMA money for that anyway, so, I mean, yeah, so you're still looking at the same timeline for EHP reviews, 12 to 24 months, whether you did, 12 to 18 months, whether you did 50 slips or 200 slips.
But you said if we build exact without going over.
I mean, we would still have to go through the EHP review if you did exactly what was there. It would just be, you could potentially get an exemption for not expanding. Like I said, I haven't seen enough of those plans to be able to, in good faith, tell you that they're not going to require, because it is water, and Florida is really particular about their water. And so from that perspective, typical NEPA requirements say that anything in excess of 20% footprint change requires NEPA assessment. If it's less than 20%, you can potentially get an exemption. I can't tell you in good faith that you will or will not apply for that. I mean, qualify for that exemption based on just what we're talking about.
Are we able to use that money from FEMA, not on the first 50, but the next sequential 50?
Yeah, but you would also, if that's the case, I would go ahead and submit as much as you can and get that, because USACE is 6 to 18 months, and then you have your ERP. I mean, just all the permitting plus the environmental assessment. So if you can do it all at the same time, then one's not holding up the other. And you don't have to have permits to go into your EHP review, but you do have to be applied for them.
So the fastest money, and James can correct me, is the Environmental Services Fund, because that's our own money sitting in our account currently that we can lend ourselves and even charge ourselves interest if we wanted to. We could build the first 50 slips and then start the discussion of FEMA and slips 51 through 125 and those mechanisms, along with partnerships after the charrettes.
So one of the concerns that I've got with that specific fund is we have to go through what's required on rate studies. And if we start taking money out of that fund, what's going to happen is ultimately the rate studies are going to show the need for massive increases in trash and garbage around the city. And so we need to have some in that. Now, I'm not saying that in this, like, maybe this does take too long and we've got to go to a different option. But I think our option utilizing the $150 million line, regardless of whether it's on this 50, the next 50, the next 100, I mean, I think that is to me what makes the most sense. Maybe FEMA's fast with their response, maybe they're not. And, you know, chances are they won't be. And
I mean,
so,
if you have a plan for the original footprint The one that I think that you have right now currently done expands the footprint, correct?
Yeah, what percentage, I don't know.
Okay, so, I mean, we could send those plans through with the exemption paperwork and see what comes back. Now, it's December 1, and it's state government and then federal government, so, I mean, at best, we're looking at mid-January, 1st of February, before we probably get anyone to focus on it. But a exemption is pretty easy. It's easy paperwork. You have to fill it out regardless of whether you have to do the full NEPA assessment or not. So that's something we can do to see what the percentage looks like.
Can I ask one more question that's not FEMA related? So we've gone through this process before where we haven't had money to construct what we needed to construct on Marina. So we did this with the Promenade. Promenade got built, and from what I understand, the city didn't outlay money for it. We paid it back through the revenues that we've gotten from the hotel and the restaurant or some other funding mechanism. Why are we not looking at that option?
May I? You're asking if St. Joe should finance it?
Yeah.
Because that's who built the Promenade, right?
Yes, and we used their revenues to pay it back.
All right, so since we're talking about time and money in St. Joe, Nevin, could you help us out on time with where we are in our agreement with St. Joe and building the marina, and what happens if they call it on us? And in terms of time, if we wait until next June, what can happen if we say that's what we're going to vote on? Does St. Joe have the ability to jump in and say, hey guys, we're going to go ahead and do this? And whatever they spend, we write a check for it. Because Josh, I think that's what you're talking about, is we wrote a check to them on I thought it was the Promenade. We had to write a check.
Yeah, I know we had to finish the Promenade.
Yeah.
And I know the city didn't have the money to finish the Promenade, and it was used either revenues from the hotel or somehow there was payback that didn't ultimately hit the general fund.
Okay.
So whether that was CRA or however that was, I'm trying to understand, like, what I'm getting the sense of, and this is what I would like to do, really from this standpoint, I'm just trying to get us to the next step, and the next step is 50, and then give a process to go through upland stuff without having some type of gun to my head on having to do anything in that process. I think that's the piece that I'm trying to say.
So, and we don't technically have to decide right today how we fund it. To me, all we have to do is go, we want to put this, when the designs come in, we put it out for bid, and over the next, because once you get the designs, there's 45 days of procurement waiting. We still can go through all the exercise of how long will it take to expand the CRA? Do we want to do that? How much will it cost? Environmental Services Fund, what's the repercussion of that? FEMA money, what are our options there? We still haven't closed those doors yet, in my opinion, and to me, it's too early to be inking a deal with the people.
Can Nevin answer the question about what Panama City is on the hook for if we don't get going on these slips?
I don't think any of us are advocating not getting going.
Well, but getting going, and your plan on how to get there is next June. And today, we are in default. Go ahead, Nevin, if you will.
My plan's not next June. I'm committed to starting now. If FEMA ultimately ends up taking too long, we've got to find another way to do it. And so, like,
We
that's
got a
what I'm
pathway
saying.
there.
Section 2.2 of the lease with St. Joe, it says that the redevelopment of the marina is obviously a high priority for both, for the city as well as the St. Joe, and that the city agrees to use, quote, all commercially and governmentally reasonable efforts to redevelop the marina, including construction of a wet slip marina with slips, prior to the completion date or within a reasonable period of time thereafter. The completion date is the completion date for Hotel Indigo. Obviously, that's been done in the past, so that's within a reasonable time thereafter.
I don't know that 3 years is reasonable, but, and if we have not met that.
Well, if we don't, then St. Joe would need to come up with a suggestion as far as they could exercise self-help, maybe.
How does the lease read?
The lease doesn't say what happens.
But what they can do, the way I read it was, they get to come in and build it. We don't get a say-so in it, and they're building the whole thing, we write a check. Is that correct? we don't get any say-so then. That's the way I read the
The
list.
trade-off is deciding now on like going into charrettes with sort of a bias of finding square
We're
footage.
doing that.
Or the deal falls apart and we end up going with a single source bid. And so, and having long-term debt, ending up right in the back of the same place of going, how do we fund this thing? And so for me, I am unwilling to vote yes on a P3 today. I will make that very clear. I want to find a way to put this out for bid so we know what it costs, and as soon as we can, and then we'll start talking about, we can decide today. I'd love to see the CRA district expanded and the CRA handle all the bonding for this thing. That's what I'd
I
love to see.
like your comment from the standpoint of what we need to decide today is whether we're going to fund the first 50 steps.
Dr. Howley said, find what's necessary in his prayer. He
That's-
said,
and
help this
so
board find what is
that
necessary.
I will clearly communicate that the city needs to be the responsible party for finding the funding for the first 50 steps.
Right.
Now, how that is done, I think is still open discussion.
Before we
Yes,
just get off this subject, I want to close my comments with this concerning the obligation to rebuild the marina. The city does have one, and the city needs to be concerned about it, and I believe that you all are, all 5 of you. That's not the issue. I do not believe the city is in breach today of this agreement, because it says that within a reasonable period of time thereafter, we've had COVID, we've had all kinds of different things that have made it unreasonable, I believe, to actually get it done prior. Now, if there is further delay, I think we are becoming perilously close to being in default. So I do encourage, as all of you have already indicated, you're moving forward. But it is there, it's something we need to be aware of. I just didn't want it to sound like that there was any admission of anything. That's not at all from my perspective.
Mayor, if I may. My better half said that I need to write things down because I get off task. So I did.
You wrote a lot.
I wrote a lot. I was up late last night. Tonight, we're here to talk about the marina, and it is, we got to be responsible, we got to be transparent, and we got to be able to achieve something. So I think we all agree that 50 slips, that's where we start. It restores public access to the water, and improves our waterfront. According to Jan's memo, we can afford to fund the 50 slips. But let me be clear, affording that is creating debt for you as a citizen versus an opportunity to partner with somebody, whoever it is. Maybe they carry that cost. But affording the 50 slips, we do not have the money in the bank. We have to borrow it from somewhere in order to do that. Okay? Either, and I think Brian said it, we don't want to raise your taxes. We want to do this deal so that it works for everybody. We don't need outside financing, as we've been discussing. Because of that, the way that I read term sheet 6 was, thanks to our commissioners down here, we can offer a loan we can make money off of. The city can fund the first 50 slips. CMP works, and this is in the sheet 6 here. The CMP works for the city at no profit. Labor and materials. So to answer the question about what's it going to cost, we'll give you the exact number. Here's how many poles we're going to need. Here's how many, we're going to know, and we're going to buy it. Okay? So it's not going to be marked up, but we procure it through how it's going in St. Andrews. They give us 3 bids. We make a decision on that. Okay? So that's happening there. What it also does, and more importantly, it does not tie the uplands to anything. Nothing. Nobody has it. There's no discussion about what's going to happen with it. What's going to happen is the Dover Coal, it's going to, charrettes, we're going to get the public involved while we're building slips. Nobody's in charge of the uplands. There's no use. There's no nothing there. No, we don't have an idea, but the public is creating that. But here's where it gets good. We give CMP a sheet that says, all right, we're going to build a dog park with a building on it. They say, we're out. We don't want to do that. We still have 50 slips that we paid for. They're ours. But we still have to pay them the 20% on the profit for them to walk away because they worked for free. There was no profit that they worked for. This is in the sheet that y'all have, okay? Or we can partner with them because they bring a document that says, hey, we're going to build something that we all put together. Remember, they're citizens too, that we all put together. And we go get a cost to do it. But at no time has anybody said, this is what's going to happen before we have all the charrettes. So I want to be clear about something. Everything that we're talking about up here, we can accomplish by starting the slips. We fund them, they build them, or that's under this proposal. It can be us build them. No, that's not true. And we all agreed on up front on this that we didn't want to manage it, operate it, run it, nothing to do with the marina. Okay? So we get into business with them, and then guess what has to happen? Just like if you're going to go build a house, everything that's going to get built has to go through the planning process. It has to be designed, come to Panama City, go through the development process, and get voted on by the commission. Nothing is going to go on the upland unless Judy has an opportunity to go to a charrette and say, this is what I like. Because that is way down the road, folks. We're trying to make a decision today on an upland that isn't going to happen for at least 2 years. But the part we've been missing is this. You're going to ask somebody to go build something. We're our economists. We've hired 2 economists that have both said the slips will not work without the upland being part of it. Their economists said the same thing. So we have 3 that say that. What all of them agreed to was that what the density is going to be, what's it going to look like. All of that, leave it to us. So the cool part is, Mayor, you said listen to our consultants. We got 3 of them that say, do it this way.
And I completely disagree with that.
And, okay, but on one end, you say, when you agree with the consultant, agree with
the assumptions
but when you
when you
don't, Mayor, their job is to take numbers and put them out there and put together, models. Whether you disagree with how they do it or not, that's how they do it. They don't take personal numbers. They don't go get costs and plug those in.
No, but we should.
But we should. But that's what you believe. That's what you believe.
That's what I'm asking for.
So what this does is it allows for us to get started. It allows for us to pay for something. And maybe, but not guaranteed, we have a partner and we don't. We might end up with 50 slips and nothing on the marina. Boy, that makes some of y'all real happy. Okay? We're just not going to be able to pay for it all. So we'll have to do something later on with that. But my point is, what the mayor and Josh are talking about is, let's just vote on this one thing and get started. When this entire sheet, it does exactly what everybody's talking about. It puts nothing on the upland other than, once we get all the densities, all the heights, all the things that we choose, then we go to CMP or somebody else and say, all right, do you like this idea? We are in charge 100% for the entire part of this process. They get no say-so. Tell me where that's a bad idea. We tell them what we want to do, but we get slips in the process that we pay for. Now, that's where we are today. Term sheet 1, they paid for everything. Everything. Today, we don't have that. Today, we're going to go into debt to do this. Okay? So, and that's the truth, folks. And don't let it be spun. They were going to pay for everything, and today we're going to go into debt. And I'm okay with going into debt if we can pay it back. But I don't want to go into debt.
Agreed.
I want it paid back.
If it will pay it back. And I think the citizens...
Mayor, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I thought you were.
Okay.
My bad. Keep going.
So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we accept term sheet 6, subject to the charrettes being completed and the long-term agreement, working with this long-term agreement and the charrettes being completed, because we don't know what any of that's going to look like. Subject to, folks, means that has to happen in order for the long-term agreement to go forward. But what it gets us is slips being started right now. And we're making money on the interest the way that it's being presented. Thank you to the commissioners at the other end.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
So I want to support that. The problem that I have with it is that I'm not sure where we're going to get the 9 million from.
The FEMA $150 million loan.
So that's long-term debt.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's not.
But with the ability to get paid back. That's the only reason that I'm okay. Either way, or we can go to term sheet 1,
Question.
okay?
Is the ability to get paid back at the same rate of interest that we will get, that the loan will cost us?
We're gonna make 0.25% on the money that we're giving out.
Yeah, but if we use portion of the 150 million, what's the interest we have to pay on that?
4.7
Okay,
plus
that's a
a
gap.
quarter percent back over top of that.
That's
Yes,
a
ma'am.
gap.
Yep, we're making positive.
We're
on
already
that.
discussing the motion that we have a second, but
Oh, yeah.
do we have a second to discuss?
I'll second to discuss.
Okay.
Let's keep discussing. So my problem is this, after the charrette, we might find that citizens are excited about this presented deal and that they're building things that they know are good and they're happy and they have more clarity. And we might just pause this might, to build it just at the price of materials is the best construction deal we'll get in singularity.
Exactly right.
In singularity. And so we might be back to this conversation after the citizens have had time to talk about different options. What do they want to see? We might be right back here. But I can't go into the charrettes with a biased opinion of you got to find that square footage, or we're back to square one with a single source bid, a non-competitive bid that we haven't put out and gotten competitive bids.
With all due respect, they met what we asked them to do, and that was, and remember, we inherited, Mary, you and I inherited
I agree.
them, okay? We didn't ask them to come in single source. We asked them, people to respond to an RFP. They're the only people that did.
Can I just say one thing? I have not talked to the bank about $9 million, so I'm not sure that the bank would be willing to fund $9 million,
How much you talked to the bank about?
between 4 and 5.
So,
okay.
Going back to
So-
I guess what we're talking about, the environmental services, how do we know when we're in need of a study and are we forced to raise rates based on the study? Because that's a process I've never been through.
So, I don't know when the next study is out. You do, Jared?
So we're in year 3 of our 5-year study. Typically, those are done 5 years, every 5 years to adjust those rates. Things that you've mentioned, sir, were, what's that do to us if we decrease our reserves? Our fleet, our capital replacement schedule really drives a lot of that, and it's due to not just customer growth, but age and wear and tear of those vehicles that drive our city streets 3 times weekly. So those are your knuckle boom trucks, your front loaders for commercial garbage, and your side loaders for residential. We've been experiencing higher than normal customer growth, so that's why the fund is in really good shape. But yeah, that's the big issue is capital replacement. A new side loader garbage truck, I believe, is in the realm of $400,000 to $500,000, and there's about an 18-month manufacturing period for those. So that's why it's so important.
How much is in there?
$6 million, sir.
Okay.
And if I can just add to Mr. Jones, so, a lot of folks don't realize, but after we have any type of storm, whether it be a severe thunderstorm or tornado or a hurricane, environmental services takes the lead on clearing our roads. In addition to just, we think they empty dumpsters and blue trash cans. They also want to have, so that immediate expense for that after a storm, and then be able to fund that operation for up to 90 days.
It's what keeps us from using temporary debt when we have debris removal and those kind of things.
They're not street sweepers.
So we got a motion on the floor. If we want to go on to other things, I would suggest we make a decision on this motion.
Well, we had a motion and a second for discussion.
So the commentary I hear from the public is, don't rush, find a good deal. We've waited long enough already. I don't hear this, we got out slips today, and with a deal that I can't really, it takes me 10 minutes to explain this term sheet. And what I do hear is, do it right, this is our only option. And so I would wonder if the citizens would rather us not even make a decision. Would they like to see the trade-off of us not making a decision on the wet slips currently and wait till after the charrettes completely and have this conversation delay the decision? Or,
I didn't get elected to wait anymore, 7 years.
I got elected to make good
Listen,
decisions.
this is a good decision. Getting the slips is a good decision. What you're trying to do is stop the upland part, and it's already stopped. There's no, in this, tell me where in this presentation that says we're doing uplands. There's nothing there. It gives us an avenue to get started.
We have avenues
With a
to start.
potential bill to pay at the end.
Yeah. Right back.
We're going to pay the bill anyway. How are we not going to pay the bill if we pay it ourselves?
We do, but through this, by going out to bid, you at least know what your numbers are. You have more predictable pieces.
And how are you paying for it?
I would love to get to that point if we finish up the discussion on this one. I have a follow-up that I would support, so.
Mr. Mayor, if I might add, I did have a conversation today with Mr. Murphy with St. Joe just to kind of get an update. He actually reached out to me and I asked some additional questions. So it is important to note that in about 2 weeks, we do expect the first 50 slips to be designed. However, by mid to late January, it's not just the West Basin, but we gave direction back in July for St. Joe to develop both basins. So within 4 to 6 weeks, we should have both basins fully designed and ready. And the estimate for the first 50 slips is about $4.3 million. That's the latest estimate from St. Joe. It's important to note that does not include the break wall on the very west side that does need to be returned. So just those are the latest numbers as of early this afternoon.
Does that include MEP over the water?
It does, but then the city would need to get any necessary electrical and water up to the edge. They'll basically bring it over the bulkhead, basically into our right-of-way, for lack of a better description.
Mr. Mayor, I think the voices of the people here tonight and that we've heard consistently have been consistent. The marina needs to remain a public, accessible jewel in our city. We are the ones who protect that trust. We are the ones who make the decision. Our staff has given us avenues where we can pay for the first 50 slips. Let's go ahead, let's get that done. I appreciate CMP and the work that has been done, and I would not want us to tie the hands at this point. Let's go unfettered into the charrettes. And it may very well be, just as Jennifer Vigil said earlier, you know, we have the 2015, we have the charrettes after. It's like what I say about Glenwood. We know 3 things people in Glenwood have asked for the last 20 years. And we know that the people in the city of Panama City has asked that our public marina on downtown Panama City remain accessible and public. And with that, I call the question.
All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Street?
No.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
No.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
No.
Motion fails 2 to 3.
I'd like to follow up this motion with another motion to proceed with the city bid documents for the first 50 slips utilizing the temporary debt loan from Hurricane Michael recovery.
Second.
Any discussion?
How are we gonna pay it back?
You're suggesting that we use the $150 million cash flow fund to pay for the marina. Initially, when that was set up, I supported it because every time that we would go to spend the credit card, we had a funding source, FEMA or state funds or infrastructure surtax, something of that nature that would back the payment that we would then get in the future to pay for the project. The idea is that the $150 million would speed projects on. Now, obviously, it would speed this project on, of course, but there's nothing backing the funding of it. So therefore, it will roll to long-term debt, and I don't support that.
It could be the revenue from the slips. It could be the revenue from other improvements that come. There could be all sorts of other things that it comes from.
I thought
And
revenue
so-
from the slips had to stay in
Could
the
be the
marina.
FEMA grant, because that's still something for us to go and go through that process.
So the FEMA grant's 5.
Which is more than enough to do what we need to do.
No, sir. It's gonna,
For the first 50, yes.
but Josh, you can't use the 50 slips if you don't have the MEP from Harrison's down. You don't have the ability to operate the slips without spending $10 million. No matter what, you have to spend the utility money. And we got 5 of it.
You guys are watching what it takes to actually get something from construction to finish with what's happening in St. Andrews. And so by the time that we actually start this, we will be a year down the road before we need that MEP that you're talking about, which means we will have gone through public charrettes, which means we will have gotten more certainties on what we can do, whether it's looking at the Environmental Services Fund, whether it's utilizing FEMA funds. There are a lot of other options at that point. But the point is, we've got documents that are going to be ready for bid in 2 weeks. We have a funding source that is already allocated for our recovery projects, and we've got $5 million that can be spent on the marina from FEMA. So My feeling is, let's move forward and go to the next step.
Okay, so,
Wait, there's a motion and a second?
all right, but let me make sure I understand. You're not okay with moving forward with no commitment, but and possibly we don't have any debt. But you are okay with borrowing money with no way to pay it back today. You want us to vote on that with not knowing where it's going to come from to pay back the long-term debt. Tell me
We've
how.
already borrowed that money. We've already budgeted in this year's budget all of the interest expense.
That's right.
And so there is no cost. This affects nothing having to do with the budget.
Did we budget
Zero.
to take out $9 million?
Yes.
No,
We
did
are
not.
we are already paying the interest in our general fund budget for this year with our current budget.
There would be a delta though between the monies earned versus the monies that we would, right? So, because the money's not staying in the current, we earn interest off of the money we don't spend.
Right.
There's a potential investment loss, but there is no change to our general fund budget by this action at all.
Okay,
So
but
to
when
your-
it's
To
done-
your request, as far as what you asked, when we do our financial report, this one would be no effect to the general fund budget
That's
for
correct.
this year.
But
This
I
year,
do,
but where do we get the money to pay it back by
And
2027?
that I'm
There
still
are options
committed
for
to
that.
working on other alternative options.
But you want to vote on that today with not knowing where it's going to come from?
Same thing, not knowing about the uplands. A lot of unknowns.
Jan, Jan wanted to chime in here.
yeah, there's one caveat from from bond counsel that the marina slips must be rented to individuals and not to someone's trade or business during the loan period to keep it tax exempt. So I just wanted to.
That's interesting.
I wanted to let you guys know
That's
that.
problematic
that would
because
pretty
a
much
lot of
kill
those
any
votes, they
commercial
do them
fishing.
in corporate names.
Well, we're talking about a temporary place to get to the next step.
Again, you can't even rent these slips until you actually get them constructed. So like, these are all steps to a step, and this is the clear step that allows us to move forward with certainty on getting 50 slips, and all these other conversations can either continue or they can get more defined, which is what I hope happens, they get more defined.
So, go ahead, Brian.
I'm not comfortable putting, 4, 9, whatever, how many millions of dollars on the credit card if we do not currently have a plan to pay it off. Because that was the plan, using the 150 million. That was every single thing we put on that. We had an idea of how much that was gonna go back on that. So cash flowing rather than putting it on a credit card and letting it sit for long-term debt.
This has to come up with money too.
No, this would roll into long-term debt, and then we would either have to eat that out of our expenses, which we're already next year looking at going into a lowered expense status for the city, which means we're gonna have to eat even more, or we're gonna raise taxes. And something's gonna have to give, and my fear is that we're gonna wind up raising taxes.
Well, this puts us in either we finance it short-term for them and they pay us back, so we're still using the credit card here, or the Upland deal doesn't work out and we're still using the long-term debt.
I did say I didn't like this.
Yeah, I don't like any of these options. This is what the job is, is giving an option they don't
But
like.
remember, we're getting that debt because y'all came up with the idea of financing it. We can go to term sheet 1 and they'll pay for everything.
We'll
There's an
still have
option
the
right there.
environmental services
They can get
fund.
started tomorrow.
There's risk
2
there,
years.
too.
But
There's
my
risk
point,
there,
but
too.
my point, Janice, is that we're talking about the debt that's been created. There is a path for no debt. There's a path for possible no debt.
So let me ask the question
And the
this
only way
way.
that yours is only debt.
Let me ask this question. Are we going to go pay off $5 million of the $150 million line of credit within 2 weeks? No, we're not. We've already budgeted for the interest expense. It's already debt that the city has incurred. Let's utilize it to help our city recover, which was the full purpose of doing it.
100%.
And then we can work on other long-term obligations on the other side of this.
It creates a $4 or $5 or $9 million ticking time bomb for us to deal with.
We will find out more once we go out to bid.
Which is
Let's pass it and then read the bill.
ultimately to not support the legislative process to get rid of property taxes.
Yes. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Street?
Can you actually repeat the motion?
What's the motion?
The motion is for the city to issue bid documents with the source of funding being the $150 million debt.
Sounds good. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
No.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
No.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Oh, do I have a motion to adjourn? Yes.
Just little housekeeping here. You do have a meeting on December 16th, and I believe it'd be appropriate at that time to give you a report, give the commission a report as far as timetable for bidding this out. If, I believe, as the city manager indicated, we should have the full drawings and bid specs by the middle of this month. When does it hit the street? How long is it there? When do we expect to get bids? Also, at the same time, it would be appropriate to give you a report concerning how this action may impact CMP as far as we don't have an agreement per se, but they were selected and they had an interim agreement. And I just want to be able to give you a report on that. There was some talk earlier about just formally terminating, which would give them the ability to bid on actual construction. I don't know, but I need to talk to CMP about it. I need to review what we already have done, but you need to have that as a report back. Also, under our agreement with St. Joe, I think it'd be important to have a formal response that we vote on that says this is the path forward on December 16th.
I also sent an email to Jonathan today about just infrastructure, water, sewer, getting it out there, what's required, is a dock snorkel thing required? I want to know all the costs, railing, timelines, FEMA money, all those sort of things.
We have
too many hypotheticals or something about stuff.
By December 16th, I think is reasonable. And I'll just state this, I mean, assuming we do get that week, the week of the 15th, we get those plans back from St. Joe, with the exception of the Christmas and New Year holidays, that will be the primary focus of our purchasing division and public works team to get those bid docs ready to go out just as soon as possible in January. And if that works out, then the hope would be at the first meeting in March to bring back some type of bid recommendation.
Thank you. Any other additions for the recommendations? No? Anything else?
I didn't hear you.
Any more recommendations for staff for December 16th?
No.
No. All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.